Hi everyone, I'm Nettie K. Welcome back to my studio and finally to part 3 of our painting of the little green pot, the golden pears, and the purple chrysanthemums. As you can tell by the painting behind me, that looks pretty much like the painting that we started on, doesn't it? Yeah, well, I started rolling our little tape and showing you how to paint the chrysanthemums, and you know what I discovered? I didn't know how to paint chrysanthemums. I thought I did, but I didn't. So I had to work and work and work and try to figure out how best to show you, without boring you to tears, how to paint a chrysanthemum. And I did. So I'm now going to grab another canvas and I'm going to show you what I learned in the process. I'll be right back and we'll get that fresh canvas going. Okay everybody, I'm going to show you my palette while I can hold it up for a minute. I'm on a gray disposable palette here, and I have my ultramarine blue, a little bit of alizarin crimson, some quinacridone violet, and a Lucas color called magenta red. I've added a little white to each one of those colors so that you can see them, and then I've also mixed up the ultramarine blue with the alizarin crimson to get this really deep violet color for the center of our flower and for the parts that kind of look as though they're in shadow. Now down here is a little transparent medium called Neo Magelt, and you've heard me talk about that before if you've watched any of my other videos. And that just helps the paint strokes to go a little bit longer, especially when we're doing some of those spindly little, petals on the flower. So let's get started, and I'll see if I can pull this off and teach you how to paint a chrysanthemum. What I'm doing at this point is I am actually rubbing in a middle tone of our color of our flower. You can go an opposite color if you like, but I'm just kind of putting a very, very thin tone of paint with a little bit of thinner, and I'm going to make it nice and light in the middle and then dark as it goes out, and it'll just be kind of a pretty background for us today, and that helps. If you're working on a white canvas, it's just not fun, sorry, but it isn't. Now I've got this, I've got a filbert brush. It's just a small, I think it's a number 8 or something. No, it's a 12. It's a pretty good size. Okay, and I'm going to grab a little bit of our medium, and then I'm going to put in our dark, a little bit of our dark paint, and I'll put in just a little bit of a center of that flower, just the indication of where the center is going to be, and then a little bit of where I'm going to aim for the outside of the petals. Okay, kind of like that. And then we'll just put in the center of the flower, like that, in a dark tone. And I'm also going to take that dark color, because if the light's coming from over here, it's going to be darker on this side of the flower. So I want to kind of create a few little spindly little things, and I do this by just kind of wiggling my paintbrush around a little bit. I might take it a little bit flat and then twirl it. This particular type of flower is kind of got some spindly edges on the outside. It's what makes it different from a sunflower. You just have big fat flowers if you're fat petals if you're doing a sunflower. This one's got a layer of really skinny petals on the outside of the flower, and so I'm just putting a few of them in this really dark color, because the dark is away from the light, okay, and so the light will go over the top of it. So we're going to get those dark flower petals in what might be considered the shadow part of the flower. So make sure that they kind of look like petals and not just worms. There we go. Now I'm going to come up and do some slightly lighter things on the next layer as we come out. And so I'm going to grab a lighter tone. You pick a color. And add another layer of these wonderful little petals in kind of a lighter pink. And you'll notice my arm drops down every time I do a stroke. Why? Because I am picking up new paint every time I I do a stroke. I don't go 1, 2, 3, 4. No, I don't. I'm actually picking up new paint every time I do a stroke. You get a real workout on these flowers. That's just the way it is. I want fresh paint on the brush every stroke. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that we make sometimes as artists, is that we just are chintzy with our paint, and we just keep, you know, painting on the same stroke with our brush forever until it turns into nothing. You want to give your painting enough paint every time. Now you can see I'm going into a little bit more intense color right there. I'm going back into the pure magenta red as I go up to the top. It's getting a little bit darker as it moves away from the light. This is the light side of the flower, okay? So here we go, a little more of those. Isn't that fun? I think it's kind of a cool looking design anyway. That's really neat. So here we go. I'm going to go to the magenta red, second layer, coming into the little donut. And I'm going straight magenta red and going in between those petals. I want to make them a little more pointy there. Magenta red. And I'm just kind of toenailing it right into the center of those petals and creating a second layer as I go into the middle of that flower. I'm working from the outside in primarily. Every time dipping into some new paint. And as I come to this side, I'm now going to begin significantly, if I can get it to where you can see it, significantly making it lighter and lighter. There we go. Yes, I can see that. Can you? And I wiggle them, those little strokes in, and move it again so that I can see some nice definition, a little bit of difference in the tonal value, and also nice, if I can get sharp edged strokes. That's hard to say. So in order for me to get that, I'm now going to flatten my brush because I see I'm getting kind of muddy in my stroke shape. So here we go. That looks a little bit better. Now a lot of these you may not be able to see the stroke, so I'm going to just come up. Actually, I'm going to put some in with just adding white to it so that maybe you'll be able to see these strokes a little bit better. There. Okay. So dark on one side, kind of lighter on the other. But it also has to have some dark underneath. I hope that makes sense, so that the light can be seen on here. And so now, from this point, I'm going to take some really light color of pink, and I know that the light's going to hit on these over here, so I'm going to take my brush flat and I'm going to move towards the center. Need a little bit more pink. Towards the center like this, and I'm going to take it flat and then I'm going to twist it as it goes into the center of the flower, and twist it. Really get a lot of paint on there, you guys. That's still not enough paint. I've got to get a lot more paint. That's getting there. I'm going to come down over here and just load it up. It's a little darker there. And I'll come back. Let's see. Let's get a little bit more of that seriously light pink. As it comes in. Well, it's finally started warming up in the studio. I still, you guys, it's in May actually, and I still have piles of snow out. Yeah, and so we finally got it warmed up, and I've opened the door, and of course flies have come in. Isn't that fun? All right, so here I have these again. I've got my brush kind of flat, and I'm going to turn it into the center. That's looking really neat. I like it. Into the center, so we have that first little row on the inside of those teeth coming into the center. And now I'm going to move towards away from the light on this side and go into straight quinacridone violet. And I'm going to do the same thing in between each one of those, kind of like we did out here, only going into the flower. I hope this makes sense. It sure took me a long time to make any sense of it. I just could not believe how much I didn't know, you know. It's a strange world when you start to paint something and you go, wait a minute, I thought I could figure this out. No. Okay, so here we go. Come up this way. And some of these are going to be going almost in an upward and outward motion this way. So this is where it gets a little confusing. You have kind of a little bit of a double row going towards the center like that. Let's do it from up here. A little double row. So 2 rows going into the middle. And then they start flailing out a little bit or spinning out. And so I'm going to put just as much contrast as I can so that you can see it. Let's see, right there. Okay, so they start kind of coming out and getting bigger and bigger as they go out towards the edge of the flower. Then I try to find where there might be some holes. There, okay, and I fill in those holes with an extra petal, some of them starting this way and then coming out and then laying down as it goes out into the bottom part of the flower. So it just varies depending on the flower and on the stage of where it is in its bloom. So get some flowers and really take a look at them, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. So I'm going to keep doing these. The inside petals are shorter than the outside petals, so keep that in mind. And now I'm going to come in with a few loose petals over the top just to kind of cover that up in kind of a starburst manner and just let them fly. They're not as squiggly in the center as they are on the outside of the flower. This is so beautiful. I love it. So you can see that nice dark stuff in the center is setting off the light on the outside. Well, that's pretty much how I approached the creation of the chrysanthemums in our little painting. I know it seemed really complicated, so here's what I want you to take away from this. When you have a complex subject, especially one of these flowers that's got a lot of petals in it, look at it and isolate the darkest dark to begin with, and then work your way out to the middle tone, to the light, to the highlight. And if you really want to set it down somewhere, add a cast shadow. That's really important. Figure out which direction the petals are going, and I think you'll be on your way. And then you know what the basic shape of each petal is. That always helps. But I think you'll be on your way. Now do remember, we're all learning together. And so if you'd like to learn something with me next time, don't forget to subscribe and you'll be notified the next time we meet for a new lesson. Thanks again so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye for now.